This is the Wednesday morning, December 4th, 2019 session of the Portland City Council. Carla, good morning. Could you please call the roll?
Good morning. Sorry. Udaly?
Here.
Fritz?
Here.
Fish?
Here.
Hardesty? Wheeler?
Here, and now we'll hear from legal counsel on the rules of order and decorum. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor. Welcome to the Portland City Council. The City Council represents all Portlanders and meets to do the city's business. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during City Council meetings so everyone can feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first reading.
Mr. Walsh, that is becoming a regular thing where when legal counsel is speaking, you do that. I would ask you not to do that in the future, please. It's very disruptive and it's rude. Sorry, please continue.
You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. If it does not, you may be ruled out of order. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you're a lobbyist.
The oxygen. I can't
Mr.
turn it
Walsh,
off, you idiot.
Mr. Walsh, if you continue to do this, you're out of order. We
The
will ask you
beaver
to
is
leave.
the
We
oxygen.
will ask you to leave. We will ask you to leave.
Inappropriate.
You do not need to move while legal counsel is reading the rules of order and decorum, and you know that well.
Shut up!
You can't tell him he can't
I
move.
can. Yes, I can.
Inappropriate.
Throw me
I
out!
can, and I just did.
Violation of disability rights.
I can, and I
Inappropriate.
just did. Thank you.
I'm outta here.
Carla, first up is communications. Can you read?
Completely
Yeah,
on
it's
purpose.
pretty much
So
every
the
week.
mayor is
and it's-
not singling out someone with a disability.
No, I am
He's
not.
being passive aggressive and childish.
Not me.
Not the mayor.
Although I can be very passive aggressive
no,
with I'm the mayor of Portland, Oregon. We're the fifth most passive aggressive city in the United States, I've been told. Yeah, we're and rising. Carla, first up is communications. Could you
I'm not
call
sure,
the
did
first?
the attorney finish reading the rules?
I don't think she.
I think
I think we
need to-
got
the people-
pretty much as far as we needed to get on
If you're
that.
helping your fellow Portlanders.
Thank you.
There you go.
Well done. Communications, and let me see if we have people who'd like to come up together. It looks like we have three people who'd like to come up together. Is that correct? The first three?
Okay, I'll read them all.
Great, thank you.
1097, request of Amelia Salvador to address council regarding announcement of the annual award recipient of the Portland Immigrant Statue. 1090, request of Sankar Raman to address council regarding announcement of the annual award recipient of the Portland Immigrant Statue. And 1099, request of Joe Rossi to address council regarding announcement of the annual award recipient of the Portland Immigrant Statue.
Good morning. Welcome to Portland City Council.
Hey, Joe, before we get started, am I correct that your daughter got elected to public office last year?
Yeah, that's correct.
And what's her name and where does she serve?
Gabrielle Rossi, she serves the East Multnomah County Soil and Water District, Position
Excellent.
1.
Good for her. And how is that going?
It's going really good. She's our first elected person in the family, so I'm pretty excited.
We'll keep some seats warm up here.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Council. Thank you for having us this morning. My name is Amelia Salvador. I'm with the Portland Immigrant Statue Project. We're here this morning to share with all of you and acknowledge this year's award recipient. Every year we award an award to a worthy candidate. The Portland Immigrant Statue is a life-size bronze statue located on Northeast 98th Avenue and Sandy Boulevard. The location is ideal as it's close to the vicinity of the Portland Airport and really is a welcoming landmark to people, newcomers that come to Portland and visitors. So this year we collaborated with newly awarded nonprofit, the Immigrant Statue. And it was a great fit for us to work with them and Sankar because we share the same vision and mission of immigrants coming to Portland. So I was really excited to work with Sankar to identify a couple candidates. I will pass the mic to Sankar.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Sankar. I'm from the Immigrant Story. Members of the Portland City Council, Mayor Wheeler, and the residents of this great city of Portland. As with the general adage that everyone looking to make a new life migrates west, I too arrived in Portland to work in its great state-of-the-art technology company, Intel. Just like any other immigrant, I worked hard. I wanted to make this industry the best of the best in the world. I lived here for a long time now, long enough to have seen the good and the bad. I have mourned the death of loved ones. I got married. I even got my son graduate from high school and start a career of his own. I have had many rites of passage. Yes, this is my home now, and I'm not going anywhere. Prior to 2016 election, I never felt the need to talk about my professional qualifications or to provide a rationale for my existence or justify for my belonging in Portland. But the recent political climate changed all that. When the political rhetoric began to deliberately target immigrants for political gains, when the rhetoric inspired actual government policies that affected immigrants and refugees, when the divisive talk began to embolden people to go to places of worship with a gun and shoot to kill, I needed to do something. I cannot just sit by and watch this one go by. So I started to tell the stories of immigrants and refugees. The goal, to create empathy so that eventually we could perhaps create a community of inclusion, one in which we recognize that we all share a common humanity. At the Immigrant Story, we believe that stories can bring our community together. We also believe in creating conversations that are important. We do this by bringing our stories to public spaces in order to ensure that we can demonstrate how deeply we care about this core value, the diversity of our citizens. That's why I wanted to thank you for hosting this public display at the very center of our community. When you share these stories, you change the narrative of our country. During the holiday season, if you want to give, please think about organizations like the Immigrant Story. Support these organizations. There are many, and they do a tremendous and important work bringing attention to these issues. If you are in need of a New Year's resolution, think about your neighbors and become a voice for those who do not have one. If you are in a position of authority, pledge to consider the diversity as a value and not merely some goal to hit or some numbers to meet. My point is reflected in the author Liba Bray. This is how change happens, one gesture, one person, one moment at a time. Thank you very much. And please keep Portland diverse and welcoming.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
I'd like to introduce myself, Joe Rossi. I'm the co-director of the Portland Immigrant Statue, along with Amelia Salvador. I appreciate Sankar had a collaboration with us, the Immigrant Story and the Portland Immigrant Statue. We're here to honor one person today out of the hundreds that would certainly qualify for this award. We have a very visible statue to welcome visitors, international visitors to the Portland Airport and our community. It was hosted on our 100-year anniversary of Park Rose. And every year we like to select a person that epitomizes the award. And the award is really meant to say thank you to a member of our community who comes to this country, loves his country of origin, continues celebrating it, equally loves America, its opportunities. It becomes a bridge and a role model for people coming to this country and for us as people who are already here, tirelessly working physically that helps other people. So I'd like to ask permission of the mayor and city council that when I recognize this person, he's able to stand up and approach the table to receive his award.
Without objection.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to announce 2019's Portland Immigrant Statue Award recipient. It's Dr. Bahar Booty.
We'll suspend the rules.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Mr. Rahman, before you leave, would you please give a copy of your testimony to Carla?
Yes.
I think a number of us would like to get a copy of it.
Thank you.
It was not only timed to perfection, but it was a beautiful statement of principle. And if you wouldn't mind sharing that with us, Carla will then make sure we all get a copy. Joe, thanks for what you did.
Just wanted to say thank you again.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Next up, Carla, looks like 1100 and 1101 would probably like to come up together, would be my
Okay.
guess.
1100, request of Jan Campbell to address council regarding the River Place Master Plan. And 1101, request of Wendy Rom to address council regarding the River Place Master Plan.
Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
great seeing some of the commissioners that I used to work with, so thank you for inviting us. My name is Jan Campbell. I reside at the Douglas, which is the apartment house in this area designated to be torn down. I have been living there for 20 years, and it is my home as well as others that live there. How many of you have been displaced because of urban renewal? It is terrible feeling because this is our home and our neighborhood. Also, it makes it more difficult when you have disabilities and need accessible housing. As most of you know, I was a disability project coordinator for the city of Portland and Multnomah County for many years. One of my responsibilities was to work with architects and getting permits when it was regarding accessibility. I actually worked on this apartment complex to ensure its access. That is why I moved into it because of the affordability along with the location and access to public transit. People like myself don't have options that others may have. I need to be near services, public transportation, sidewalks, and I can go on and on. My unit needs to be large enough to accommodate my wheelchair and my specific needs due to the disability, and that is hard to find. Individual apartments only have a few accessible units in their total, and many of these are old ones that are not accessible, and the new ones are too expensive. Because I do not meet the criteria of low income or affordable housing, I fall into the market rate units that can only be costly and still not meet my needs. I am not the only one that faces these obstacles. I work on the ADRC for Multnomah County, and every day we get people calling who are medium income and cannot afford a place to go or need accessible housing. River Place is a neighborhood. We have shops, restaurants, a variety of housing, and many people living there. Some people living in the Douglas have lived there since it was built. Some of these individuals are individuals who are disabled and older adults. In recent years, they've done major remodels of these units. Accessible and moderate income is very difficult to find and can take months to find one that meets my individual and other individual needs. I really don't expect you to understand how difficult it is. You need to experience it. I get it. Let me give you an example. As some of you know, I worked here with Vera Katz when she was mayor. After she retired, she became quite frail, and I saw her many times on the streetcar. And she would say, Jan, I now understand why you advocate so tirelessly, because I now need these accessible features. She got it. She lived it. I hope that you understand that displacing people from their homes and neighborhoods can leave them without any housing or housing that does not accommodate their needs in order for them to live independently. We now have a low income and affordable housing that was built on land that was not developed in that area, and this is good. No one was displaced. So please, when you make your decision, you realize how many people you are impacting and changing their lives. Even people who live in the condos, with changing the makeup and character of their neighborhood, some could feel a reduced sense of belonging or feeling out of place in the home they own. There have been studies done on high-rises and how it affects mental health issues.
Can I propose that the speaker get an extra 30 seconds, Mayor?
You bet. Thank you. Continue, please.
And I just had one other thing to say, and I gave you a longer testimony because we had to cut it, but I am not advocating against development, but I am advocating against displacement. Thank you so much, and it's been great seeing you all again.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
I'm Wendy Rom from the West End. As DNA Land Use Chair, I'm speaking on behalf of the Downtown Neighborhood Association to raise concerns about the River Place development proposal and especially the rental properties known as the Douglas Apartments. This rental apartment complex has nearly 300 units built in the 80s and 90s, many 3 to 4 bedroom units suitable for families, and it includes units that were specially designed to be ADA. Most importantly, it is a neighborhood of rental units in the missing middle affordable housing category, crucial for the city and most especially for the central city. Today, it is a lovely, thriving neighborhood. A little history. The last time we destroyed an entire neighborhood was in the 50s and 60s. You recall Albina being replaced by the Coliseum and the thriving Italian Jewish neighborhood demolished to create the South Auditorium. After the Italian Jewish neighborhood was lost, history tells us great shame ensued and was talked about for years. I learned about it in a PSU class just a few years ago, so the shame endures. The next threat came in the 70s when existing neighborhoods on the east side were threatened with demolition as a result of a Robert Moses-inspired freeway plan. That demolition was fortunately stopped thanks to public protest and a humane city council. Since then, we have master planned only industrial sites, large parking lots, or undeveloped properties, but no existing neighborhoods until now. This threat to an existing neighborhood, the Douglas Apartments, is the result of a last-second Central City 2035 spot upzoning of the 8-acre River Place site approved by City Council. I believe City Council was sold a bill of goods when you were convinced to vote to upzone this neighborhood. I want to think that you didn't fully realize the human cost involved at that time. There are many other serious problems with hyperdevelopment in this isolated island waterfront site, including major transportation hurdles with a tripled population. But loss of this valuable rental housing and the displacement of so many people is the most serious of all. The Design Commission cannot address demolition of an existing neighborhood since it doesn't fit any of their approval criteria. Therefore, we come to you today. A small part of the site could be demolished for development, but I sincerely hope you can revisit your broad brush decision to upzone and do whatever you can to save the Douglas Apartments. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you. Appreciate it.
And thank you, Commissioner Fish, for recognizing me to spend more time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes communications. Next up is the consent agenda. My understanding is 1109 has been returned to Commissioner Fritz's office. Has anything else been pulled?
Yes, we've had 1112 requests be pulled.
And who requested that?
Lightning.
Very good. Please call the roll on the remainder of the consent agenda.
Udaley?
Aye.
Fritz?
Just want to note that the passage of ballot measures 26204 and 26205 are on the consent agenda as proclamations. I just want to thank the people of Portland for once again supporting ballot measures that protect the Bull Run watershed and allow the Water Bureau to operate efficiently. Aye.
Fish?
Commissioner Fritz, would you remind us what the vote tally was?
It's remained the same as it was on election night. It was 89% for the Bull Run watershed protections and 85% for mutual aid.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. Consent agenda is adopted. Next item, regular agenda. Well, let's see. Sorry, hang on. Next item is going to be times certain item number 1102.
Appeal of the Southwest Hills Residential League against the hearing officer's decision to approve with conditions a one-lot partition with concurrent environmental and planned development review adjacent to 1315 Southwest Broadway Drive, LU 18-119056 LDP ENPD.
Let's see, and that's 11. Colleagues, the last time we heard this matter, council heard from all parties, including the appellant's rebuttal. The oral record was closed and the written record was held open until today at 9:45 a.m. We're back to deliberate this item. And if there is no further discussion, I will accept a motion and a second for a tentative decision.
Mayor, I need to declare that since the hearing, I have visited the site and walked on both sides of the street on a dark and stormy afternoon. And so with that, I'm very sympathetic to the neighbors' concerns. However, I don't think that there's a better solution than the somewhat imperfect solution that the staff has come up with. And therefore, I move to deny the appeal and uphold the hearings officer's decision.
Very good. The motion has been made. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any further discussion?
I'd like to have a little discussion about this.
Commissioner Fish?
Well, I'd like to hear my colleagues.
So may I, I'm going to, sorry, it always feels like the Wizard of Oz from behind the curtain over here. I want to make sure that council recognizes before there's a vote that there needs to be a minor change to the condition related to transportation if this is the motion that you end up voting on. The exhibits that were referenced in the hearings officer's decision were changed as a result of a public works process, and so we would have staff from BDS essentially replace two words so that instead of referring to exhibit H42C, it would refer to the exhibits that are in the public works. And this was discussed at the last hearing because the H42C is gravel, and as a result of the public works, it was updated to asphalt on the south side. And I'm sorry that took so long to say.
I'd like to
but-
take a 1-minute recess. Could you clarify again that the motion is to deny the appeal?
And
There-
uphold the,
Uphold the hearings
And
officer.
uphold the hearings officer, but I'm not sure so which of the exhibits are you suggesting needs to be changed and why?
So I'm going to, staff had actually prepared a brief summary of it. If council decides to deny the appeal and uphold the hearings officer's decision to approve the application with conditions, the following hearings officer condition, B1, should be modified to reflect the concept public works approval, which is the paved rather than gravel on the south side. So the wording would, I think, Sean, would you hand this to, I want to make sure, we may need to make some additional copies for, how many do you have? Four, and then I'm going to give copies to the two attorneys on either
we
side.
could just
to make
read
sure they
them
can see it.
because we're
It's
not going
very,
to.
it's really simple, a simple
Yeah.
change, but I just want to make sure everybody sees it.
Okay, and just for my benefit, then, Commissioner Fritz, could you state again your motion?
So I move to deny the appeal and uphold the hearings officer's decision with the amended condition as specified by city attorney.
And this is the amended condition.
Yes, and
Very good.
there was the discussion that,
Yeah, okay,
and that was
good.
actually part of why I moved away from trying to do a big retaining wall and putting, ideally you would want
okay,
pedestrian
right.
improvements on the same side, but because they may be able to shift the lanes and because there seems to be, on either side, there isn't a particularly good way to stay on one side. I crossed, I think, 2 or 3 times. But I do think with the paved on the opposite side, that gives more opportunity for a safe pedestrian way. And frankly, I'd rather be walking facing speeding traffic coming downhill. Although I suppose one way or the other, you're going to be walking against with your back to it.
Okay, and so this is modifying condition B1
Yes.
to reflect the concept public works approval. Got it. Okay, good.
So Mayor, since we're in the conversation
Yeah,
phase,
thank you.
I would benefit from hearing from the PBOT commissioner.
Well, I mean, I feel similarly to Commissioner Fritz. It's not ideal, but it is a particularly challenging kind of terrain we're dealing with. And there doesn't seem to be a solution that would be reasonable to impose on the developer. as with most of these hearings, it seems like we can never get to really the perfect solution. So I'm prepared to support the motion.
Thank you. And I think another factor is that there are more homes on the side that will then have the pedestrian amenity. There will not be homes directly fronting on the street from the tangent village. They'll be going a different way. So this will be just for the pedestrians. So it really makes more sense to have where people are coming out of their homes to have a connected pathway rather than having them cross the street. Did you have a different thought, Commissioner?
No, I'm sincerely interested in my colleagues' views on this. I think land use hearings are one of the few areas where we end up having conversations among colleagues up here in the company of concerned residents, where we ventilate the issues. And I wish all of our processes actually had a mechanism to do that. Whether people agree or disagree, I think sharing our concerns and our values is important. This has been a very complicated issue that I've tried to get my arms around, but I am grateful for the guidance that you both are offering. Mayor, do you have anything to offer?
I have something else to offer too, and it was the discussion we had around proportionality was highly concerning to me as well. And legal counsel made a good case that upon appeal, and this would be appealed, I believe, to the Land Use Board of Appeals, is that correct, legal counsel? That they weigh something called proportionality. In other words, is the additional cost that we are, or the additional conditions that we would be attaching to a particular parcel proportional to the impact caused by that parcel? And my recollection from our discussion is we're talking about, I think it was 20 units or approximately 20 units. And the added cost, while it is a subject of great contention in terms of what the cost would be, we heard estimates in the range of $750-ish thousand plus. And proportionality is one of those issues where LUBA listens very intently, and the concern that legal counsel expressed and the concern that the Bureau expressed was that there is a high likelihood that our decision would be both appealed and overturned based on the proportionality principle. So that's something that's also weighed on my mind in addition to the issues that Commissioners Fritz and Udaley have raised.
Yeah, and I mean, I can get a little more technical on the PBOT size. We used a court-recognized formula for determining what kind of road improvements are appropriate. And in this case, the formula did not add up to this ask being roughly approximate improvement, which is why it was denied by the hearings officer. And although I do think the neighborhood association is justified in their desire to have major road improvements done, as I said before, this is really challenging terrain. These would not be considered roughly approximate improvements. It would likely go to a LUBA lawsuit, and we would very likely lose. So it just really doesn't seem like there's any other way forward.
Thank you.
And I would just add that I am generally wanting to have the improvements on the adjacent, on the property, and that even if it's a little beyond what the formula might say, that in general is the principle, is that the frontage adjacent to your property gets improved, no matter where the homes are. It's just in this case, it didn't seem feasible to me.
So we're taking a
Second the
tentative
motion.
vote now?
Yeah, and I just want to mention for the record, I did receive an email from Ken Gunther prior to the closing of the written record. I do not think it's appropriate for me to read it aloud, as has been requested, but I will enter it into the record. Very good. Carla, please call the roll, and again, this is a tentative vote.
Udaley?
Aye.
Fritz?
Well, thanks to everybody who participated. This was a really constructive and principled debate, and for me, a really close call that, as I say, you would normally want the improvements to benefit the property, the people who would be living in the development. And in this case, I think that having the road crossing based on the twistiness of the road and just where the current parking and ditches, etc., are, I think that staff has worked to come up with a reasonable solution, although certainly not a perfect one, and I acknowledge that I know many of the neighbours will be disappointed. Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you, Carl. Then can you please roll over the council's tentative decision for an adoption of findings and a final vote at a later date?
Are we thinking 2 weeks out or further?
I suspect this one may need longer. We're going to, because the applicant's attorney will need to prepare findings and our office will need to review them. So I'm
Yeah, and we're
guessing
pushing up against the
January.
holidays.
unless
January?
there's,
Does the 8th of January work? That's the first,
how about?
First Wednesday
How
kind of
about a
meeting.
week after that, if we
a
can
week
do that?
after, okay. It would be 10:45 on January 15th, Wednesday.
Chris, does that work for you? Yes, that works.
Okay. So January 15th at 10:45 a.m. time certain.
All right, so we have a adoption of findings and a final vote scheduled for January 15th, 10:45 a.m., time certain, Portland City Council. And would City Attorney please provide council any guidance on next steps beyond that?
No, we will make sure that the findings are provided to Carla by Monday or Tuesday before adoption of findings, but we will work with the applicant's attorney to get those reviewed and to you in time.
Great, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Next item, 1103,
That's at 10:45, Mayor.
10:45,
For
correct?
some reason, this was noted for an hour, so it's going to throw our whole schedule off.
Oh, you're right, sorry, thank you, it will. To the
Yeah. Same with me.
regular agenda, please, 11:15.
11:15, appoint Derek Spears and reappoint Kristen Miner and Matthew Roman to the Portland Historic Landmarks Commission.
Colleagues, the Portland Historic Landmarks Commission is a 7-member volunteer commission which provides leadership and expertise on maintaining and enhancing the city's historic and architectural heritage. The Portland Historic Landmarks Commission reviews new development within historic districts and major alterations to historic resources. Members must have a demonstrated interest, competence, or knowledge of historic preservation. The appointment of Derek Spears today fills a public-at-large vacancy on the commission with an individual who's committed to ensuring that the city's goals of historic preservation serves all of its people, particularly those communities who've not had their stories adequately told. The reappointments of Kristen and Matthew continue the consistent leadership they've developed through their service over the past 4 years. Thank you, Derek, Kristen, and Matthew, for your willingness to serve on the Portland Historic Landmarks Commission, and I look forward to your guidance as a commissioner. So I believe we have Hillary Adam present? Yes? No?
No, she probably wasn't expecting to get to it.
I don't think
this early.
most people were expecting to come here till about noon.
We're just going to have to take a recess then. We are in recess till,
Let's take a 5-minute recess, Mayor, and see whether we can move some stuff up. I may be able to get BES to come.
okay?
But let's take a 5-minute
All right, that
recess to
sounds
figure
good.
that out.
Good, 5-minute recess. Worked out. I want to thank my colleagues who did a little wheeling and dealing here and got it all moved forward. So we'll start with 1119, please, Carla.
1119, amend towing and disposition of vehicles code to clarify when a vehicle may be towed.
Commissioner Udaly.
We even brought some props.
Wow, look at that.
Sorry, I didn't notice we were back in session. Oh my, look at that. Okay. Thank you, Mayor. This is, no, I am on the wrong item. What's the item number?
1119, 1119.
1119. Oh, I had 18. Okay. This ordinance clarifies an existing practice around reserving on-street parking in a meter district. It will amend our code to make it clear when a parking reservation takes effect and when parking enforcement can order a tow to enforce a temporary street use permit. Here to provide details and answer questions is Parking Enforcement Supervisor Donald Hunter.
Yes.
As well as Mike. Welcome, both of you.
You bet.
Take it away.
Okay, I'll go ahead and present. So the way it works, so if
Mike,
you're...
put your full name in the record.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Mike Krebs, Parking Division Manager, PBOT. And?
And I'm Donald Hunter, Parking Enforcement Supervisor, PBOT.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. So what happens is when you have a construction thing going on at your business and you want to rent the space on the right-of-way in front of your business to put maybe some pods or some construction vehicles or something like that, you pay the city $70. You pay them $70 for each space. And then what happens is the parking enforcement officers go out and place delineator signs up, temporary. Each metered space downtown has a little metal plate by it. And this metal plate on the bottom has a magnet, and it sticks to the metal plate, and we set those up. If there's not a metal plate in place, we go ahead and put on the plastic cover on the signs that let you know that parking is temporarily prohibited in this area for whatever the designation is on the actual sign. And so the officers document the date, the time, and who actually installed the delineators or the signs. And then what happens is the next day we can start towing the following day once the sign is in place and verified. And then what happens is you bring in your construction equipment and notice there's a car parked there. You then call up parking enforcement comes out. We take pictures of the sign, make sure the sign's still there, make sure the car does not have permission to be there, and then we actually tow the vehicle. Once the vehicle is towed, the owner has the right to appeal before the hearings officer. And up until about 2 years ago, the hearings office was finding in our favor under the current Title 16 code, but 2 years ago, the hearings office took a different interpretation that they had done in the past. And so what we're asking today is to change that to make sure that we do not have to verify the signs every single day. Because the current hearings officer believes that the current code states that every single day we have to go out and make sure these signs are erected properly. And there's about 700 or 800 of these signs out there right now, which would require us to go out and verify daily every single sign, and we currently don't have the capacity to do that. And so in the code change we're requesting is that once it is up, no further verification is necessary. We believe that's a good thing because we verify it when we put it up, and we verify it once again when we actually get the call to actually make the tow from the space. So we set it up, get called, confirm it's still there, and then make the tow.
So Mike, I just want to be clear about something. If we support this ordinance, there would still be an additional check prior to towing to make sure there's a sign.
Yes, so you call us.
So that's the safeguard for the member of the public.
Correct. We will come out, verify, the officer will see, yes, the sign is erected properly, take a picture of that sign in conjunction with the car that's parked in there. So you can take a picture, the car parked right in front of the sign. So we do confirm it when we get called back out, that we will not tow it. If the sign's not properly there, or if it's not there at all, we would not tow the vehicle. Or if we did tow the vehicle, it'd be at our expense and not at the owner's expense. Because it's kind of a business agreement. People hired us, or actually they purchased a service from the city. I would like to rent this space, City of Portland, for $70 a day. And we said, we'll rent it to you and we'll make sure that's cleared out so you can conduct your business. And so we think it's good for us to uphold our bargain. You paid $70 a day and you expect that spot to be there to put your pod or your trash cans or your dumpsters, whatever that may be, or your equipment. So this is our practice. It's been going on for decades. Donald can vouch for that. It's been going on for decades. But what recently caused it to come to our forefront was the hearings office interpreted as we had to verify these signs every single day. So that's what we're requesting the code change for. And in the code, as you see, we're just asking that it does not have to be verified once it's in place, the original time, until we actually go back and see it's parked in properly.
Mayor,
Commissioner
I'll
Daley.
just say I'm not a fan of having to tow cars because it's a stressful experience. It's a hassle. It's an expense for the
Yes.
owner. But we have to be able to allow people to do the work that needs to be done. And we have to occasionally tow cars. And as Mike mentioned, the car owners still have an opportunity to appeal if they feel that it wasn't properly noticed. And if we have to go back every day and check 800 signs, the cost, I imagine, would have to go way up because we can't provide that service for free. And it's really not a good use of our time.
So I support what's on the table here. I'm just wondering, with the parking kitty and the various other ways that people can use their phones to pay for their parking in the future, you might look at, could we just call the person who's parked the car and tell them to move it within, 15 minutes or it's going to be towed? Because obviously
I was wondering that as well. I mean, you can't just stand on the street and holler whose car is this, but
for
more
people
and
who have
more,
done it with
yeah.
technology, we know who they are, we can call them. And that way, we get the same result without them incurring a tow charge. So just something to look into.
That actually makes sense. I don't know how feasible it is right now, but it might even be faster than a tow
Yeah.
in some
Yeah.
cases. So it's something we could explore for sure. Because, the last thing I want to do is tow someone's car. I mean, some of these folks are in a hurry. They just don't see the sign. And so it's not something, we take towing very seriously. That's the last thing we want to do. But there are times when, hey, I got a cement truck here, and someone's in my spot, and I got to pour some cement. So
Yeah.
we do that.
Mayor, if I may, and this is slightly off topic, but since you're here, Mike, I wanted to make sure I understood this.
Okay.
So from time to time, when I'm walking around the city, I see a situation where there's construction going on a lot, and the developer or the contractor has moved the fence onto the road, and it usually results in blocking the bike lane. But it physically intrudes onto the street, which seems to me different than what we're talking about today. But what is the law with respect to that piece?
Yeah, that would not be in our, that's issued by, I think, BDS and those folks and the permit center. I don't know for sure, sir. I don't have an answer for you on that one because that does not normally involve parking enforcement.
But it is interesting. This is, I mean, it's one thing to say, we're renting you the parking spot, in which case you can put, whatever you want in that spot and have access to it.
Right.
It's an entirely another thing to move the fence and block off a sidewalk, a bike lane, or intrude into the roadway. And at some point, I would appreciate clarification as to what our ground rules are in that area.
What I can do, sir, I can contact the folks that approve those kind of things and allow those kind of things to occur, and I can have them get back with you or your staff.
Yeah, what it inadvertently or advertently creates is a lot of user conflicts.
Oh, definitely.
So I'm just interested in what are the, Commissioner?
I want to thank you for raising that. It's oddly timely. I purchased a couch from a individual last week who had a broken jaw and broken wrist because he was driving west on Rosa Parks. There was a utility sign, one of the big kind of, vinyl orange signs in the bike lane. He swerved around it and hit some wet leaves and wiped out. And so it's a real danger, and a lot of different road users use our bike lane as a storage space. And it needs to stop, but that is more of a permitting issue when there's construction than a parking issue. So I'm actually I found out the date, time, location of that accident, and I'm going to be following up to figure out who had that permit. And
But at the, when appropriate, I would appreciate an update on that, just to better understand what our rules are and how they're being violated.
Okay. And
happy to do that. All right, so, Mr. Hunter, did you have anything to add, or is that it for the?
No, I don't have anything
Okay.
to add. I think Mike covered it pretty well.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you,
thank you.
gentlemen. Is there any public testimony on this item, Carla?
Yes, we have 3 people.
All right.
Maggie, Steve Entwistle, and Charles Bridgecrane Johnson.
I'm gonna be, I just can't sit through this anymore.
Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Charles Bridgecrane Johnson, and I want to thank you for this well-ranged, assertive, not aggressive conversation. And one thing, it's unfortunate that Commissioner Udaley has stepped out, because when we talk about any kind of funds related to parking, more and more people are getting a little bit confused, I think, about what's city money. How does money get into the TriMet system, where there's so much more recently public concern about fare enforcement? And so possibly one of you will be curious enough to ask, when the $70 is collected to rent these spaces, where does that money go and how does it get used? Although I was glad for the scope of the conversation, the fact that we got into bicyclists and pedestrian safety, I do think that the other issue that kind of should be touched on, I think when it's first presented, the idea of just taking out the little pole, attaching it to the magnet, sounds like $70 covers all the cost recovery, but maybe that should be addressed in a more diligent way to actually talk about what the estimated average expense of dispatching is, because it's going to change. If you send somebody out and it's a place where they only have one parking space that they're securing for a pod, $70 still probably covers it. If it's a whole block of places, then we're kind of getting, somebody could make the argument personally that we're getting too much money if we're covering a long string of parking spaces. So I don't know if anybody else will want to have that addressed, but there it is. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay, so my question would be, how much money do you get from the parking meters, and where does that money go? That's an excellent question that I'm sure that all citizens of Portland would like to know. And then the other thing I would say is I'm looking forward to the day when there are just places to park on the periphery of Portland, and then people just get around with a scooter or, some other electric form of transportation, and it's just bikes and scooters around, say a mile or two, area. And when you're talking about aging and disabled people, you can use those neighborhood electric vehicles that can be adapted for disabled use. So, yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Does that
TRN
complete-
3.112.
Thank you. Does that complete public testimony, Carla?
Yes, that's all who signed
Any
up.
further discussion? This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading.
Mayor, may I propose that we take up 1121?
If we have staff here to present, absolutely.
It's a second reading, and then
Oh,
we'll
very
find
good.
out if we have staff.
Yeah, we have staff for several others here. Carla,
Joe?
1121, which is second reading.
Come on up.
1121, authorize a competitive solicitation and contract with the lowest responsible bidder and provide payment for construction of the Arbor Lodge Kenton Sewer Rehabilitation Project Number E10978 for an estimated cost of $5,350,000.
This is the second reading. We've already heard a presentation and taken testimony. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Fritz.
Aye.
Udaly.
Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye, the ordinance is adopted. And Joe, you were here on which item?
1120.
Carla, can you read 1120, please?
1120, authorize a competitive solicitation and contract with the lowest responsible bidder and provide payment for construction of the Northwest Thurmond Street Sewer Reconstruction Project, number E10696, for an estimated cost of $4,680,000.
Commissioner Fish.
I have some brief introductory remarks, and you have a PowerPoint, right?
We do.
Do you need Carla's help with that?
We do.
So if Carla and Asena, if you could help them set up the PowerPoint, I'll do the opening comments. Colleagues, this project will allow the Bureau of Environmental Services to replace undersized pipes in Northwest Portland. The project will protect public health, properties, and the environment. It will reduce the risk of sewer backups to 31 properties and street flooding risk at 16 locations. Just a few background notes. This project is in the Willamette Heights neighborhood. There have been 6 reported basement sewer backups in the project since 2008. And then we'll get into the other details in a second. Here today to give us a brief presentation is Joe Dvorak, Design Services Division Manager, and Julia Sheets, Project Manager, both of whom work for the Bureau of Environmental Services. Welcome, and thank you for rearranging your schedules to accommodate council this morning.
You're welcome. Good morning, Mayor and members of council. So we have a very short presentation and also here to answer any questions that you may have. And I'll turn it over to Julia Sheets at this point. Thanks.
Thank you. For the record, again, my name is Julia Sheets. I'm the project manager on the Northwest Thurman Street Sewer Reconstruction Project. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, for having us, and thank you for keeping us on our toes. The project, as Commissioner Fish said, is located in Northwest Portland in the Willamette Heights neighborhood. And the purpose of the project is to increase sewer capacity. As Commissioner Fish stated, there have been 6 reported basement sewer backups in the neighborhood since 2008, and the city actually received complaints about the basement sewer backups 4 years ago from the neighborhood. This project directly addresses those complaints, and upsizing the sewer will resolve risk of basement sewer backups at 31 properties throughout the neighborhood, as well as risk of street flooding at 16 locations. The project will construct, replace, or rehabilitate approximately 4,800 linear feet of sewer mainline, using both open trench and trenchless construction methods. And in some areas, the sewer will be upsized from 10 inches in diameter to 21 inches in diameter, so a fairly significant upsize. The project will also improve access to the system for future maintenance due to some abandonment work that we are doing under the Balch Gulch Bridge. Additionally, BES is partnering with the Bureau of Transportation to construct 9 curb ramps, which will improve ADA accessibility in the neighborhood. There are several challenges on this project, one of which includes historical landslides that have occurred within the project area, most recently in 2017. The photograph here is from a landslide that occurred in 1950, and the photograph also illustrates a second challenge that we have on the project, which involves a trolley that used to run up Northwest Thurman Street in the neighborhood that has since been abandoned, and the tracks have since been paved over. So that results in the project having to remove over 2,000 linear feet of buried trolley tracks. An additional challenge with the project is traffic control due to the curved streets of the neighborhood and narrow lanes, as well as a TriMet bus line that runs up Northwest Thurman Street. Additionally, there is high traffic on Northwest Thurman Street due to the Leif Erikson Park entrance to Forest Park at the top of Northwest Thurman Street on the west end. Working around the Balch Gulch Bridge may also prove challenging due to the foundations of the bridge, which are over 100 years old. However, this project has included measures to address all of these challenges proactively, including advanced coordination with TriMet, vibration and settlement monitoring, and a stipulation for part of the work to be constructed during the dry season, which we are defining as June through November. Public involvement for this project includes community outreach staff having been involved with the community in the neighborhood since project design began. The outreach staff has been involved with both property owners and tenants, impacted neighborhood associations, TriMet, as I mentioned earlier, other city bureaus, and other community partners. Public information has been provided to the community in the form of mailed notices, email updates, next door posts via the project webpage, the phone hotline, and site visits. The engineer's estimate for this project is approximately $4.68 million, and the level of confidence in this estimate is high. We anticipate construction beginning in June of next year, 2020, and we do, as I mentioned earlier, we have the dry season construction windows. We're actually going to need 2 of those to complete the project. Excuse me. Therefore, we anticipate construction lasting approximately 530 days, or about a year and a half. And that's all I have. Thank you again for your time, and we welcome any
I
questions.
love, keep that vintage photo up, will you, for a second? I just love these old photographs. I guess that's how we used to do sewer construction back then.
Hand dig it. It's hard work.
Thank you, Julia and Joe, for, as usual, an outstanding presentation. Colleagues, questions? We do acknowledge this will be disruptive. There's a main access point to Forest Park along Thurman. But the community, the folks who live in that area have been advocating for this work for some time, and we're pleased that we're now finally able to move forward and make these changes. So thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Is there any public testimony on this item, Carla?
Yes, we have 3 people, Maggie, Steve Entwistle, and Charles Bridgecrane Johnson.
Well, once again, I'm just very pleased to see the bureaus working together to kind of minimize the impact to the neighborhood and deliver more benefit with the curb, PBOT and BES. Yeah.
The enhanced collaboration between PBOT and BES is a great story in projects ranging from northwest to southwest to the other side of the river. And we're particularly pleased that we'll be able to add the curb cuts to bring the sidewalks up to ADA standards while we're doing this. So thank you for that partnership.
Thank you.
That was good. You're welcome to go. Thank you very much, both of you. Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Charles Bridge Crane Johnson. Thanks, y'all, and Leif Erikson, I guess. It's interesting that we designated that the Leif Erikson entrance. I can't remember if there's a Leif Erikson Drive up there or not, but his impact on the people that were living there was like zero. The rest of us white folks that came by carry a little bit more responsibility, and I hope. It's been a while since I entered Forest Park from that way, but it would be interesting to see how much we have that really recognizes the crimes that occurred for us to have control of this land. One thing that was interesting when we talk about the impact on this neighborhood was to look back to last week, item 1095, which was the Portsmouth, Arbor Lodge, Kenton sewer rehabilitation. And when we documented that, when that was documented and presented to council, there were some interesting demographics that really analyzed and talked about who was living in the neighborhood and how things were working. And for this particular neighborhood, we decided not to give that the same level of attention. There's all kinds of speculative reasons why that might be. But the project sounds soundly researched. I don't know if there should be a little caveat like, if the bridge falls down, how much does that change the cost estimate for the project? But I have faith that the seismic monitoring and the settlement monitoring, that's ultra unlikely to happen, and that these people will be able to keep the poop out of their basements in the future. So I look forward to you all voting in favor of this. Thank you.
Good morning.
Okay, yes, go forward.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Maggie.
Appreciate it both. This is any further discussion?
No, just, again, want to thank our presenters for their superb work. And we'll be back on a regular basis with a lot of projects throughout the city. And we're hitting our stride, and we thank the council for the full support of our work. And thank you, Asena Lawrence, for pulling all this together.
Thank you. This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Next item, 1118. Commissioner Udaley, this is going to be yours.
Authorize the Bureau of Transportation to acquire certain temporary rights necessary for construction of the signal rebuild Southeast 52nd Avenue and Southeast Woodstock Boulevard project through the exercise of the city's eminent domain authority.
Commissioner Udaley.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a signal rebuild project to facilitate left-hand vehicle turning from Southeast Woodstock Boulevard onto Southeast 52nd Avenue. The scope includes sidewalk infill, ADA-compliant curb ramps, pedestrian crossing improvements, striping and signage improvements, and traffic signals. I know that eminent domain is a trigger word, and I want to assure you this is an extremely small area that we'll be temporarily working in. And as far as I know, we've received no remonstrances. So here to provide details and answer any questions is PBOT right-of-way agent Ellen Kilmer. Welcome, Ellen.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
To Mayor and Commissioners. As Commissioner Udaley said, my name is Ellen Kilmer with Right-of-Way Acquisition with PBOT. And thank you for the introduction. As you said, Agenda Item 1118 would authorize eminent domain authority and allow us to offer just compensation for property rights needed in connection with this project, the signal rebuild at Southeast 52nd and Woodstock. The property rights in question would support the reconstruction of the sidewalk, particularly the ADA ramps, as well as signal improvements at the intersection. I would also like to mention that I have made contact with the one property owner that is being affected, and they have declined attending today. I'm happy to address any questions that council may have.
None at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Thanks
you
for
very
being
much.
here. Is there any public testimony on this item, Carla?
I believe he left. Steve Entwistle?
Yeah, he's gone. Very good. Any further discussion?
Thank you for a
Commissioner
very
Fritz?
thorough presentation addressing in advance all of my concerns.
Thank you, Council.
Yeah, thank you. Carla, please call the roll.
Udaley?
Thank you, Ellen. I vote aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. 1116, Portland Housing Bureau.
Amend Affordable Housing Code to establish a manufactured dwelling park affordable housing bonus density program.
Colleagues, when council approved code changes to establish new zoning for residential manufactured dwelling parks, the changes included an option for park owners to pursue a density bonus. The voluntary density bonus is available to parks where at least half of the dwelling units have restricted affordability levels at no more than 60% of median income. The Housing Bureau is here before us to establish a new section of Title 30, the Affordable Housing Code section, in order to implement the density bonus program. Welcome.
Good morning, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners. My name is Dory Van Bockel. I'm a manager of the Development Incentives Team at the Portland Housing Bureau, and here to talk to you about implementation of new code for this new bonus program that was put into place into City Code last year. So what exactly is the MDP program? It's the Manufactured Dwelling Park Affordable Housing Density Program we're referring to as the MDP program. And as Mayor Wheeler mentioned, this was implemented into zoning code and allows for a density bonus in exchange for affordable housing, with the goal of preserving lower housing cost options that are provided for within manufactured dwelling parks across the city. The density bonus is voluntary. It's not something that has to be done, but is an allowance for property owners to either maintain and increase the density on the site or to transfer that density elsewhere and to another site. And that's something that we will partner with the Bureau of Development Services in implementation. To qualify for the density bonus, a MDP, a manufactured dwelling park, would need to restrict at least 50% of the dwelling units within the park, and those households would need to earn no more than 60% of area median income. And we're proposing an affordability period of 99 years and a requirement for annual certification of tenant incomes and rents, as the Bureau otherwise requires of other projects within our portfolio. The process and timeline to date for moving this implementation into effect. The council approved zoning code previously. We have had a presentation to the Housing Advisory Commission a couple of different times and have received some stakeholder feedback through a couple of meetings with property owners across the city of the manufactured dwelling parks affected by the zoning code. And we're here today to adopt the code implementation. We still have a process of implementing administrative rules to fine-tune the operations of the program, the day-to-day, what we'll do to process applications and such.
By the
And-
way, can I just make a comment about
Yes.
this slide? I wish in almost every presentation we got as a council, we had a slide that was as clear as this one is in terms of explaining where we are in the process,
Perfect,
what our
thank you.
role is, what follows. There's a lot of stuff coming at us. So when you take the time to put this, on a graphic, it is enormously helpful. And I want to thank you for doing that and
Excellent.
urge my colleagues to do this as much as possible.
Well, thank Cassie Graves on my team too, who put that together for us, so. But yes, it's helpful for us too to keep track of the different initiatives as well. So the Housing Bureau does have a administrative rule process where we will publish a draft of rules, allow for a 60-day period of comment by the public, including a public hearing. So upon approval today, we would be then hereafter implementing that process to implement the rules. That is the end of my presentation, but if you do have more questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thanks, Dory. Dory, when you established the density bonus program and you established the levels, did you do some degree of marketing or outreach to find out what the level of demand would be at that level?
So the part of the implementation was of the zoning code, and so I'm not sure what work had been done at that point, since it was part of the establishing of the new zone itself for manufactured dwelling parks or residential
So the core
manufactured
of Title
parks.
30?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that established the 60% of median family income amount. It also established the requirement that 50% of the units meet the threshold. What the Bureau has proposed is the 99-year affordability period, and primarily because it meets the same guidelines as is in our other long-term affordability portfolio.
Good. Well, I'll be curious to see what the level of demand is for this. I'm very, very proud of the base work that was done around the manufactured dwelling parks. That impacts approximately 3,000 units of housing. And so it was quietly done, but it's going to have a significant impact, and I really appreciate the work the Housing Bureau has done there. Commissioner Fritz, did you have a question?
I was just
or
going to comment that, yes, the Planning Bureau did look into the market research that you questioned about.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate it. Any further discussion? Carla, any public testimony on this item?
I believe Maggie and Charles Bridge Crane Johnson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dory. Good presentation. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Commissioners. Charles Bridge Crane Johnson, and I'm not sure how to be passive aggressive about this horrible situation that you put me in with agreeing with both the mayor and Commissioner Fish. But the one thing I think that could have made the presentation even better if we had gone a little bit more vigorously into the equity discussion, the quadrants, and the placement of this housing. But since I wasn't super getting the data from the slide, it was interesting to note that, and it's a bit surprising that in the electronic PDFs for this, which is only 4 pages, 140,000 manufactured homes. Oh, that's in Oregon. This is interesting, not Portland. The next one is number 3 is the Portland. But the main thing that I think would be, when we talk about, usually we take it in a binary way, the east side, west side equity, what percentage of these mobile home parks are constrained to the sort of the Killingsworth corridor or the Powell corridor? Obviously there are a lot of complexities to the real estate market and how housing was developed, but with Commissioner Hardesty not present today, I think it's especially important that we talk about doing even though this was a great presentation with that special process simple slide, to have somebody deal with the GIS so that we know not just statistically what we're talking about as far as MFI people, but also geographically, who are these people, where do they live, Powell in 111th, Killingsworth in the 70s, and stuff like that. And be mindful of how far these people are having to go to work, and how do we continue to provide them with economic opportunity for growth. Thanks very much. But obviously the package looks like it's going to do good things, and I look forward to your unanimous passage.
Good. Thank you. Good morning.
I agree with what Charles said, and I want to know, why do we have to stop with this zoning in certain corridors? Why can't we have residentially owned commons in every neighborhood so that we have an equity in that the rich are living next to people who are low income? What's wrong with that? And why can't we zone these in every neighborhood? And why can't we have tiny home villages that are residentially owned commons in every neighborhood? There's so many abandoned, boarded up homes. If those homes were demolished and taken down, and you took over that property and you turned it into a residentially owned commons with, 4, 8, 12 tiny homes, depending on the size of the property, where they're paying for the liability and they're doing the landscaping and the management because they've collectively come together and thrown in their $200 or $300 a month together to maintain everything. I don't see why you couldn't do that anywhere. No matter what the neighborhood, why specific areas?
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Appreciate it. Thank you both. Any further discussion, colleagues? Please call the roll, Carla.
Udaley?
This is a really, I think, smart and creative approach to generate more affordable housing. I'm really pleased with the work that we've done around protecting residents of manufactured dwelling parks, which come with a unique set of needs and challenges. I vote aye.
Fritz?
I'm really happy to support this. Pamela Ferguson and Ed Guerin took me around the manufactured home community on Hayden Island when I was campaigning in 2005 and again in 2007, and we knocked on doors, and I came to realize what a wonderful option some of the manufactured home parks are and how they're not mobile at all. So I want to thank Claire Adamsick for helping to get the policy on mobile homes or manufactured dwellings into the comprehensive plan in Mayor Hales' administration, and then the continued good work of the Planning Bureau and the Housing Bureau in making ways that make it legal to encourage this and give incentives for property owners to keep this really useful type of community, while at the same time having more economic benefit because they can put the density either on the site or off the site. So it's a very elegant solution, and I'm very happy to support it. Aye.
Fish?
Commissioner Fritz, I think Ed Guerin took me on the same tour, and some of those manufactured homes on the Columbia were really spectacular and affordable. And let's be clear, this is part of our comprehensive approach to helping people stay in their homes, avoid being displaced from their homes, which often leads to a spiral, including homelessness and other things. So the more we can do upstream to keep people in their homes, to maintain affordability, the better. This is a step in the right direction. I'm pleased to support it. Aye.
Wheeler?
Well, this is a continuation of a process that started many years ago. As Commissioner Fritz mentioned, former Mayor Hales was very aggressively involved in making sure that manufactured dwelling parks were protected. This is a natural extension of that work, and I'd like to thank everybody at the Housing Bureau who worked so hard on it. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we can go back to time-certain item number 1103.
Grant a 10-year franchise to Verizon Wireless LLC, doing business as Verizon Wireless, for wireless communication services in the city.
Colleagues, the ordinance before us would grant Verizon Wireless a new franchise for a 10-year term. In September of 2018, Commissioner Udaley and I set out priorities for staff for negotiations with carriers on wireless infrastructure. Those priorities were reflected in staff's creation of a new template franchise agreement for wireless carriers, which complies with new federal rules. Staff from the Office for Community Technology are here today to answer any questions. Director Perez, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Elizabeth Perez. I'm the Interim Director for the Office for Community Technology. I'm joined by...
I'm Jennifer Lee.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Program Manager at OCT.
So I like to do an overview every time we come to council on what our office does. So we are the Office for Community Technology. We are a small bureau that manages access of the public right-of-way by utilities who serve our residents and businesses. The right-of-way is the city's largest physical asset. It's about 20% of the land within the city's About 20% of the land within the city is right-of-way, which is all the streets and sidewalks. and our residents have paid billions to acquire, build, and manage this asset. We recognize that utilities bring benefit to our residents and businesses every day. We've got water, heat, electricity, phone, cable TV, and increasingly broadband. Utilities want to provide these services often at a profit, and to do that, they need to install infrastructure in the right-of-way. The city wants these services for our residents and businesses, but we need to ensure that the services they provide are done safely and our residents do not subsidize the utilities who are installing the infrastructure in the public asset. But we're here to talk about Verizon and the franchise before you today. So Verizon has agreed to the city's franchise requirements. This agreement ensures that Verizon will pay franchise fees at our city rates similar to carriers installing similar infrastructure in our right-of-way. Verizon has had a franchise since at least 2006. The ordinance before you today continues Verizon's existing right to operate in the city and incorporates recent changes in federal law. The term of the Verizon franchise are commensurate as required by federal law to the AT&T franchise passed by City Council earlier this year. The franchise assesses $1,250 per year for every small cell attached to poles in the right-of-way and $8,000 per year for every attachment that is bigger than a small cell. The $1,250 fee was adopted by City Council in 2018 and again complies with recent federal communications order on small cells. And the $8,000 fee continues rates first set by the city in 2003. There are a few differences between the AT&T franchise and the one before you today. AT&T voluntarily agreed to the following terms in their agreement: a prepayment for franchise and permit fees, and a nonprofit donation of $200,000 to support digital equity efforts in the city of Portland. Due to recent federal law changes, the city cannot mandate any public benefits in wireless agreements. We cannot mandate a donation in the franchise or prepayment. Staff did complete the formal franchise process required by city charter, which includes publication of the franchise in the Daily Journal of Commerce. After publication of the franchise, the auditor's office received no objection and the franchise was filed for the council agenda. Second reading will be January 8th of 2020. Jennifer Lee and I are here to answer any questions if you have any.
Covered it. Thank you both. Is there any public testimony on this item, Carla?
Yes, we have 6 people signed up.
Very good.
The first 3, please come on up, are Mariah Scott, Travis, I believe it's Bakai, and John Isaacs.
Welcome. I don't know if you have a particular order. John, do you want to start?
Go ahead, John.
Did you say me, Mayor? Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor Wheeler and members of the Portland City Council. My name is John Isaacs, and I am the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Portland Business Alliance. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. The Portland Business Alliance is the Greater Portland Chamber of Commerce and the leading voice for business in the region. The Alliance takes direction from our members to advocate on their behalf at all levels of government to support commerce, community health, and the shared and sustainable prosperity for our region and our state. This year, PBA formed for the first time a Technology and Innovation Committee. This committee was formed to reflect and give greater voice to Portland's thriving tech community and out of recognition that over half of Portland area jobs are now with non-tech companies. The quote-unquote tech industry is now an essential part of all sectors of our economy, including the public sector. Additionally, and perhaps most importantly—
Excuse me, did you say that almost half of our jobs are with tech companies or non-tech?
Over half of tech jobs are now with non-tech companies, so banks, for example, or government agencies. Yes.
I see, thank you.
That is according to the Technology Association of Oregon, who's partnered with us in formation of this committee. Additionally, and perhaps most importantly, our members recognize that continued investment in technology is essential for the sustained shared prosperity of the Portland region. On behalf of our 1,900 members and our now thriving Technology and Innovation Committee, I'm here today to express our support for the 10-year franchise agreement with Verizon. This agreement will allow Verizon to add new 4G capacity that will improve wireless service for existing and prospective Verizon customers, as well as build new 5G infrastructure, which, when fully operational, will fundamentally improve and change how Portlanders live, work, and play. High-speed mobile connectivity and the fiber networks that underlie them is critical infrastructure that employers of all sizes prioritize. From local Portland startups and small businesses making niche products to Fortune 100 companies looking to acquire new talent or build new campuses, other cities are competing for the same limited pool of human and financial capital, and 5G connectivity will further elevate the city of Portland above its peers seeking to attract businesses and residents. 5G will have a transformational effect on how public and private entities conduct their operations and will enable new business models. In addition to high-speed mobile broadband, the massive bandwidth, low latency, and unprecedented speed delivered by 5G technology will enable a tremendous amount of new and improved services and technologies that will improve the daily lives of Portlanders and give the city critical new tools to tackle many of our most intractable problems, such as congestion, pedestrian safety, emergency preparedness, public service delivery, innovation and education, and more. Most importantly, we see high-speed mobile connectivity as essential to an accessible, equitable, and inclusive economy. Technology has long been a critical tool for inclusion. The coming iterations, including 5G, will not only continue that trend, but could move from merely critical to transformative. 5G will create new and exciting opportunities for accessibility. For example, the high-speed and ultra-low latency capabilities of 5G will be critical to services that enable communication services for the visually impaired, as described in this congressional testimony. With 5G, more Portlanders will be able to work remotely, reducing commutes and time spent away from their families. And more Portlanders will have real-time, low-cost access to critical communication and information. We know that Verizon is committed to building a citywide 5G network that covers all Portlanders, regardless of where they live. Mobile broadband is, by its very nature, mobile. Verizon builds where the demand is, and the demand in Portland is everywhere. Thank you.
You got through that in less than 3 minutes. I'm very impressed. Well done. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Dr. Travis Pocky, and I'm the Senior Director of Technology at Portland Public Schools. PPS recently undertook a visioning process and outlined the portrait of a graduate. In our highly connected world, it's no surprise that the vision for our future graduates is infused with technology. Our graduates will be inquisitive, critical thinkers with deep core knowledge who are effective users of digital technology. They will be powerful and effective communicators who can use multiple communication tools to convey ideas and information in writing and through video and audio recordings, digital technology, augmented reality, storytelling, debate, and other forms of expression. Most importantly, they'll be optimistic, future-oriented graduates who will become influential and informed global stewards who know how to use technology to collaborate on project teams with diverse peers locally, nationally, and globally. To achieve this vision, access to technology and the opportunities that 5G can bring, both in the classroom and at home, is critically important. PPS was a proud partner in the creation of the city's broadband plan and has continued to participate in the Digital Inclusion Network to ensure equitable access for all students and families. Schools and students are dependent on access to the internet to improve student outcomes, close the achievement gap, and deliver better learning opportunities for all the students that we serve. The plan recognizes that the city and its partners must take bold actions, like ensuring the development of world-class network infrastructure that all have access to, including 5G. With the opportunities that 5G infrastructure provides, we can focus on new ways of addressing connectivity in and between our buildings and reduce overall network complexity, allowing us to provide equitable, high-speed access for all while maximizing our limited resources to deliver high-quality, connected educational opportunities for all students. Expanded access in schools allows students to take advantage of advancements in technology, expanding the opportunities and sources to learn from. At home, additional options for families to access the internet helps close the opportunity gap. While today's action won't guarantee that all Portlanders have access to 5G, deploying the network is a critical first step, and we must continue to work to bridge the digital divide. We support the city's work to bring 5G to Portland and will continue to be a partner in the ongoing work to ensure that everyone has access to technology.
Thank you.
Sir, you are the Chief Technology Officer for Portland Public Schools?
No, I am the Senior Director.
Senior Director?
Yes,
Is there someone over you, or are you the?
there is.
Well, I'm pleased to know that we have such talent at Portland Public Schools because we have a technology oversight committee. The city and periodically are looking for candidates to come help us provide oversight of technology projects. And it's a pleasure to make to meet you today and to know that Portland Public Schools has a lot of talent.
Absolutely. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Mariah Scott. I'm the president of Skyward, a Verizon company. So I represent both the Portland startups and the Fortune 100 company. We are a leading drone operations management platform. We were founded out of the University of Oregon MBA program in 2012, and we opened our first office in downtown Portland, right on Nadeau Parkway in 2014. And we've grown from a group of 5 co-founders to about 75 people, and we continue to grow our teams here in Portland. We're very committed to staying in downtown Portland and to really expanding the business there. When Skyward was founded, it was illegal to fly drones commercially in the US. But today, there are over 158,000 commercial drone pilots, including me. And drones are important in disaster response, in commercial construction, engineering, media, utilities, real estate. They help companies gather critical data while keeping workers out of dangerous areas and helping businesses save time and money. Drones are important tools to businesses in our community. One of our customers is PBS Engineering, and they actually work with Portland Public Schools to use drones to inspect the roofs, to protect roof infrastructure and do the HVAC and the roof inspections. We saved a lot of time and a lot of money with that contract. We were able to do that with drones faster and more efficiently. Now today, none of the drones are connected to a network. So that's where the 5G and the 4G comes in, because cellular connected drones make it safer and more secure to manage these drones in our cities and in our regions. We can provide even more value to businesses and to our communities. And at Skyward, we're connecting drones to 4G and also to 5G to better serve our commercial customers. 5G unlocks much more potential for drones. It's a critical resource for our business. With 5G, we get low latency, high bandwidth, and security that drones need in order to fly autonomously and to gather critical data and be able to deliver that data back in real time. So with 5G, a utility company can remotely deploy drones to help detect and prevent issues. And an example of this is in the wildfires, where drones can actually be used to fly lines, and they can inspect where do you have vegetation overgrowth. They can see a problem with circuitry or with a transformer before humans can see that. So we can actually get ahead of the issues and prevent some of these gas leaks, wildfires, some of these disasters. At Skyward, we're building that infrastructure and services. We're going to unlock new opportunities, and Verizon's investment in 5G makes it possible to do that. It's an important technology for our business and the business in our communities that use that technology. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, and I enjoyed my tour of Skyward very much. It was exciting to see the work that you're doing, and I'm particularly pleased with the growth of the company, and we do want you to stay here in Portland, so we thank you for choosing Portland.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Commissioner Daley.
this is slightly off topic, but your testimony just reminded me that I'm really interested in the possibility of using drones with thermal sensors to help maintain our urban canopy and spot troubled trees, and also maybe help keep them from getting entangled with power lines and falling down. And
yes,
so I just want to put that out into the universe and
it is
see what
definitely
happens.
possible. We have a number of customers in utilities, and primarily it's been the utility companies because they're trying to maintain infrastructure, and so things like trees, canopy overgrowth, vegetation, it's extremely expensive and time-consuming, and drones really change that and make it possible.
Cool. Great.
Great, thank you. Thanks, all three of you.
Thank you.
Next three, please, Carla.
Are Marcelino Alvarez, Maggie, and Charles Bridgecrane Johnson.
And were those the last three, Carla?
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Alvarez. Would you like to start, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Esteemed members of Portland City Council, Mr. Mayor, I'm Marcelino Alvarez. I'm the Chief Product Officer of Fresh Consulting, formerly CEO of Uncork Studios. We were acquired last month. The backdrop to innovation is a well-considered public policy that balances the needs and interests of all its citizens with the aspirations of its entrepreneurial and innovation clusters who seek to create new products and services that often push the boundaries of existing regulations. This public policy must neither favor those with access, power, and capital, nor should it ignore those who have historically been maligned, excluded, and marginalized. That policy rests on a dynamic edge. It must not only be adaptable to enable new technologies to evolve, but it also must be thoughtful and considerate of the potential for any new technology to be used in unexpected ways, some good and others not. Any technology altruistically conceived can, in the wrong hands, do harm. And so the task before you today, and not just today, rather, but for the foreseeable future, is to consider the yin and the yang of any new technology promise as you create policies to cultivate and regulate nascent industries. Today, I'm pledging my support of Verizon's 5G infrastructure for this city. I sit here before you as a mentor and advocate to the startup community, as a founder, as a service provider to organizations and companies who seek my expertise as they pursue commercialization of innovation, and most importantly, as a citizen of Portland. A best-in-class digital infrastructure will allow this city to recruit new companies, maintain its foothold in the global marketplace, and to provide access and services to a broader range of its populace. Startups are constantly on a quest to get from 0 to 1. Infrastructure such as 5G will greatly accelerate their ability to commercialize innovation across a variety of industries, from urban mobility to IoT to mobile technologies. 5G has the potential to do for IoT and those other related industries what the cloud enabled for software as a service startups. For those communities that have historically lacked access, 5G has the potential to provide an affordable alternative to high-speed broadband internet connectivity. This can not only help those historically marginalized by plugging them into our networks, but more importantly, provide them with the tools to learn, to stay informed, to run their businesses, and to foster innovation. My ask today is to not only consider allowing 5G in Portland, but also to think through what a compelling unified vision for Portland's digital and physical infrastructure over the next decade looks like. From that perspective, it becomes clear that without 5G, we will be taking a step backwards. And with it, we'll move our city forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcelino. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So my question is Verizon under AT&T, because like AT&T still virtually owns everything? That would be a question. And then also, what is Verizon going to do to protect the security of the marginalized, disabled, and aging if they get online? And also, how are they not going to not be like AT&T when I think aging and disability, Verizon does the phones for aging and disability. So I want to know, like, how are they going to help aging and disabled people when they call because they've got questionable charges on their phone or on their internet, and help them figure that out? Because AT&T ran a total fraud scam on the LifeLink customers, and the government had to sue them. So I want to know how they're going to protect aging and disabled people.
Thank you.
Still, good morning, Commissioners. Charles Bridge Crane Johnson for the record. A record which is a lot of blah, 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 no metrics, no specifics, no data, no goals, no timelines. Just because we say digital divide or something doesn't mean we're helping people. There's a lot of legalistic reasons and arguably moral reasons why you have to approve this, since you've already approved AT&T. But when you do this, it's a good place to document where we've had success and where we've had failure at closing the digital divide. It makes one suspicious when there's no data about increased access for poor and minority people. Why don't we talk about it? Because the data is probably not very encouraging. It probably means that the success rate and growth in wealth for white tech bros is still much higher and faster than it is for any other segment. And you have decided to create a presentation which doesn't deal with that information at this time. It'll be interesting to go back and review the live video testimony here, and particularly take out a phrase, nor should it favor. We live in a diverse community where some people are opposed to affirmative action and direct measurable things to increase participation for those who've been formerly slighted, excluded. We have people whose families in this community have been subjected to genocide within the last 100 or 200 years, probably much more recently. So when we talk about these franchises and the fact that we're giving multi-billion-dollar corporations access to publicly owned and controlled space, just because the federal law says we can't stipulate public benefits, it's a beautiful time for you to talk a little bit more about how public benefit has, hopefully, or sometimes we don't meet our goals, has not happened. So you would think that whatever's next, SoftBank, Sprint, T-Mobile, when they come around for their turn, hopefully they're listening and they'll do an even better job. As to Maggie's question, international giant telecoms, Vodafone got off the Verizon bus, so Verizon is a domestically centered, independent, direct competitor of AT&T. I don't know if they do Obama phones, but that is another thing. How these companies are delivering services was not, to the majority of people, wasn't discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Colleagues, any further questions of staff? This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you. Thank you all. Next item, please, is item 1104.
Update the bicycle parking regulations and amend fee schedule for land use services.
Colleagues, this is a second reading. We've already had a presentation and heard public testimony on this item. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Udaly?
Well, while I know bicycle parking may seem insignificant to some, the availability and design of bicycle parking has a real impact on whether people can choose to use a bike to travel around Portland or not. We can't expect people to replace car trips with bike trips if they don't have an easily accessible place to store their bike securely. This is why I'm very thankful to city staff from the Bureau of Transportation, the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, and the Bureau of Development Services, as well as the Portland Housing Bureau, for finding solutions that address the need of adequate and secure bicycle parking in new development. This was a truly collaborative multi-bureau effort, and I think the outcome reflects the benefit of us working across bureaus. So through this work, we are taking steps to meet our goals related to congestion and climate change. However, we know that code changes are not the only thing that must be done, which is why I'm pleased that my bureau has funding to build over 75 miles of bike facilities over the next 5 years, many of which are part of projects to make travel safer in East Portland. I want to thank Liz Horman, Sarah Figliozzi, and the rest of the PBOT crew, as well as the many staff from BDS, BPS, and the Housing Bureau who all contributed. Finally, thank you to all the community members and stakeholders that participated throughout this project and helped make it as strong as it is. I vote aye.
Fritz?
The 2010 Bicycle Master Plan that Commissioner Fisher and I voted for under Mayor Adams directed outreach that found that one of the primary deterrents from bike commuting is having a safe place to store bikes, both at home and at the destination. And the Planning and Sustainability Commission heard that bike theft for many families means not replacing the kids' bikes. So I'm very pleased to support this. I believe that multifamily housing in particular should be livable for the people who live there, and I support the measure that calls for on large sites to have shared bikes storage places that are not in the individual apartments, because as we heard in testimony, that spaces in the apartments are sometimes put in the wrong place, they're too small, or you're tracking mud and leaves in with your bike. So having a shared space in larger developments seems absolutely the right thing to do, and I'm pleased to support this. Aye.
Fish?
Well, a lot of good work went into this. I want to thank everybody for their contribution, and I'm pleased to support it. Aye.
Wheeler.
Well, this is exciting because of the collaboration that Commissioner Udaley referred to earlier and the research that allowed the city council to adopt updated and equitable bike code requirements. First, I want to thank the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, the Bureau of Transportation staff, the Bureau of Development Services, and the Housing Bureau for developing a code change project that I believe creates a safe, accessible, and provides the opportunity for secure bike parking as our city grows. I also want to thank the Planning and Sustainability Commission and our volunteers on that commission for asking tough questions, for listening and reading extensive testimony, and for developing the recommended code update that reflects a wide range of potential development scenarios. I want to thank Commissioner Udaley and her team, and I'd like to thank everyone on my team. This was truly an excellent collaborative effort. What this technical fix means is that more people are able to bike to work or to school because there's more housing with accessible, safe, and secure bike parking. It's a win for the climate, it's a win for mobility, and it's a win for equity. I'm very proud to vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Thank you, everyone who worked so hard on that. Next up is 1105.
Establish standards for bicycle parking for certain city-funded affordable housing projects designed but not yet permitted.
Colleagues, this is also a second reading. We've already heard a presentation. We've taken public testimony. Is there any further discussion? If not, Carla, could you please call the roll?
Udaley?
Well, I appreciate this exception that would have really negatively impacted some existing projects that have already been scoped, funded, or are in the pipeline, but appreciate moving forward with that we're going to have ample bike parking in affordable developments as well. I vote aye.
Fritz?
Good catch, Commissioner Udaley. I'm very pleased to support this. I also love it when we have two related items to vote on, because then I can say my thank yous that I forgot to say in the first item on the second one. And so I do want to say thank you to Claire Adams-Sick, my Senior Policy Director, and Tim Crail, my Chief of Staff, for all their work on both of these items. Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Happy to support it. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. 1115.
Appoint Derek Spears and reappoint Kristen Miner and Matthew Roman to the Portland Historic Landmarks Commission.
Colleagues, the Portland Historic Landmarks Commission is a 7-member volunteer commission which provides leadership and expertise on maintaining and enhancing the city's historic and architectural heritage. The PHLC reviews new development within historic districts and major alteration for historic resources. Members must have a demonstrated interest, competence, and/or knowledge of historic preservation. The appointment of Derek Spears today fills a public at-large vacancy on the commission with an individual who is highly committed to ensuring that the city's goals of historic preservation serves all of its people, particularly those communities who haven't had their stories adequately told. The reappointments of Kristen and Matthew continue the consistent leadership that they've developed through their service over the past 4 years. Thank you, Derek, Kristen, and Matthew for your willingness to serve on the Portland Historic Landmarks Commission. I look forward to your continued excellence and guidance. We now have Hillary Adam, who's the BDS Senior Planner, presenting the report. Good morning.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Hillary Adams, Senior Planner, BDS. I am here mostly just to introduce you to Derek and reintroduce you to Kristen and Matthew. I met Derek a couple months ago and was very excited by his enthusiasm at the possibility of serving as a public at-large member and representing those voices that are concerned with the loss of places that matter to them. Kristen and Matthew have been on the commission now for 4 years and have established consistent and dynamic leadership, and so I'm excited about their continued leadership on the commission. So I would like to invite them up so you can ask them questions now if you would
Great,
like.
thanks. And just by way of maybe introducing yourself, if you could state your name for the record, maybe just tell us briefly what you see the path being ahead, what you see some of the opportunities and challenges as being.
My name is Derek Spears. I I remember the opportunity of talking with Kristen about this particular opportunity here, and I'm a kid from the South, from Alabama. My husband is from Arkansas, and we have lived a life that has been presented with certain challenges as we've been married and together for over 19 years now. The thing I can see going forward is being able to be a voice, because I do believe the representation and perspective matters on certain things that are happening within the city. This city holds a very special place within my heart from when we moved here 6 years ago, for what has afforded our family and what we saw in the city when we moved here and what it continues to do for us. So I'm extremely excited to be able to provide the perspective, provide that voice that needs to be had out there to help talk about the things we need to preserve here for underserved communities, and I'm excited to be able to do that going forward.
Thank you, appreciate it. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council members. I'm the chair of the Landmarks Commission, and I'm willing to step up for another 4 years, whether or not I'm elected chair, but I'm willing to do that. As you know, it's not always an easy position, but I do believe I have a unique ability, given my background in architecture and planning and historic preservation, and these things all come together. But it's more than kind of just good design. This is an interesting time in the city, and we have so many challenges in front of us, and I do think historic preservation helps answer some of those challenges. Not all of them, obviously, but we definitely want to partner as much as possible with City Council and other agencies to make that happen. And I do want to just tell you how excited I am to have Derek Spears willing to step up to this commission. He, as you probably heard, he is from elsewhere, so he brings a unique perspective. He's been enthusiastic about Portland. In fact, one of the things he told me when we first met was that he spends many of his weekends just finding a new neighborhood and walking around and kind of learning about it. So that brings me great joy, and I think he's going to really be able to bring a wonderful new voice to the commission. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Well, I'm Matthew Roman, and I'm privileged to be here with these guys because I love the passion, and that's, I think, what you're looking for in a good landmarks commissioner. I moved to Portland in 1994 with my family after studying architecture, and I chose Portland because of the urban growth boundary, because of the small block system that we have, the 200-foot block system. And so it was a purposeful act to come here. And I think I've spent the last 25, 30 almost years trying to add my own mark on it, but to protect what's so unique about it. And I think the biggest challenges that we have going forward is to just how to manage our growth while not losing the uniqueness of our place. And so, as we think about the future and the really important challenges that we have with climate change, I think preservationists today offer a new perspective that's not the freeze it in amber sort of, we don't want anything to change. We want to be part of the sustainability movement where we're reusing our buildings instead of throwing them out, and finding adaptive ways to put them to new use, and also to help, help solve the housing issues that we have by, being a positive addition to the number of units that are in the city, because we think that historic districts are great places to live, and they offer a lot of unique opportunities for citizens of Portland. So I'm passionate. I wouldn't do this if Kristen Miner wasn't here doing it as well, because I know her passion. I just met Derek today, but I can feel it in him. So I think you've got a good one. So
Excellent. Well, we're proud to have all three of you serve. Colleagues, I don't know if you have any further questions.
Just a quick comment. To Mr. Spears and Mr. Roman, thank you very much for stepping up. This is a very important assignment, very time-consuming work, and the quality of your work helps us make informed and good decisions. So we thank you. And Kristen Miner, you've been an outstanding chair. Thank you for re-upping for another 4 years and bringing that continuity of historical knowledge. There are as you said, enormous challenges that this city faces. I happen to wear rose-colored glasses, so I think in terms of if we get them right, some of the really pressing issues in our community around being a leading green city, addressing homelessness, on and on, cleaning up our river, if we get them right, I think we become a singular city of our size. And what's exciting is we're making this history as we go along. And there is a big fraction, or I would say tension point, right now between the supply-siders on housing and the preservationists in terms of how we balance the two. It's a very healthy debate, but your voice is needed now more than ever to preserve our history and the places that give us a sense of place. So thanks to all three of you, but particularly to Kristen, who has been serving for some time and is taking this on again. We really appreciate the fact that people of your quality and your background are willing to serve in these positions and help us get it right. So thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Fish to accept the report, a second from Commissioner Udaley. Any further discussion? Please call the roll, Carla.
Well, I want to thank you all for your willingness to serve. I'm really fascinated by the work you do. I wish I could job shadow you, but I'm a little too busy these days. But I have a particular interest in how do we preserve beautiful historic buildings while, serving the kind of increased need in the community. I almost can't stand to look at old photos of the city and see what we decided wasn't worth saving in the past. It's heartbreaking, and so the more that we can preserve what we have left, the better. I vote aye.
Fritz.
Thank you, each one of you, for the time that you put in, Matthew and Kristen, and thank you for being willing to step up to the work, because it's a lot of work. And I'm really impressed that all three of you are here this morning, and again, taking time away from your lives. It's a little sad that this afternoon we're going to be voting on reducing historic protections in many areas of our cities. So your advocacy is going to continue to be needed, and obviously sometimes the council listens and sometimes we don't, and that's the nature of citizen commissions, which makes it even more challenging to serve in the role that you do and to be willing to continue the passion. So I hope that somebody will be getting into this seat in 2021 who will continue my passion for historic preservation. Aye.
Fish.
Yeah, thank you. Aye.
Wheeler.
It's a strong panel. Thanks a lot for stepping forward. I vote aye. The report's adopted and the appointments are approved. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next item, 1117.
Amend Joint Office of Homeless Services intergovernmental agreement with Multnomah County to authorize fiscal year 1920 revised budget allocation to the Joint Office of Homeless Services.
Colleagues, the City of Portland, through the Portland Housing Bureau, has a strong relationship with Multnomah County in funding the Joint Office of Homeless Services. This partnership is formalized through an intergovernmental agreement between both the city and the county, and it was first formed in July of 2016. This amendment to the IGA revises the City Council's fiscal year 1920 annual budget allocation to the Joint Office of Homeless Services, which entails $214,318 in federal carryover funds from the fall bump process and $180,000 in recreational cannabis funds to provide supportive housing capacity and services. We have the housing program, well, actually we don't. And we have two great people here. How are you doing?
Good. Good morning,
Morning.
Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners. I'm Molly Rogers, the Deputy Director of the Portland Housing
Thanks,
Bureau.
Molly.
And I'm joined by Christian Elkin with the Joint Office of Homeless Services.
Good morning, Christian. It's good to see you. Thank you for being here.
And we have no formal presentation for you this morning, but happy to answer your questions.
Colleagues, any further questions on the budget adjustments? Commissioner Fritz.
Question regarding the recreational cannabis funding for supportive housing services. How are we trying to target that to make sure that it's available for people who are from communities previously impacted by cannabis prohibition?
Yes, it is. We are looking to use cannabis resources to expand our supportive housing menu of services delivered by addiction and mental health practitioners. That is actually being managed through the Joint Office of Homeless Services, and they contract that work out to Join, a nonprofit that hires a multidisciplinary team of folks who can work with our residents who are living in permanent supportive housing of city-financed housing, who need those additional services to deal with whatever issues that arise that may impact their housing stability.
In particular, the recreational cannabis tax funds are intended to be used to serve people of color, and how are we making sure that those services are intentionally being provided to people in that category?
So when we contract, Christian Elkin in the Joint Office, when we contract with Join, we will set forth these stipulations of the Cannabis Recreation Fund and ensure, so when they're hiring the FTE that they're using for the mobile housing team, they will have certain stipulations. Also, when we do coordinated access and all of the entry, we're also ensuring that the vulnerability assessment risks are made, and that we're identifying who needs the services based on the different types of funding that come into the Joint Office. So this isn't the only funding that comes with stipulations that come into the Joint Office. So oftentimes there's a set of criteria that the people who are receiving the services have to meet. And so this will just be another entry into that set of criteria.
Terrific. And if you could please track that, as we're going to be having some more conversations about allocations of the cannabis tax, if you're able to give us information on the demographics of the people being served, that's going to be helpful in knowing should we continue to put this money towards that service.
Absolutely. We'll include that in the contract
Mayor?
language.
Thank you.
Commissioner Daly, then Commissioner Fish.
If I could just add to that a little bit, those are really good questions and something that I'm, a concern that I share with Commissioner Fritz. I just want to add that there is a deep focus on racial equity in the Joint Office. So to some extent, that's built into the system. They're really committed to closing those kind of disparate impact gaps and serving communities of color in particular. We can't always target funds with a kind of like race requirement, but we can get to, there's creative ways to get to people who have been most impacted, and I believe that's happening, and they have lots of good data. It's almost too much data. Every meeting I'm a little inundated with the data.
Commissioner Fish.
Yeah, a couple points. One, am I correct that under Mayor Wheeler's term as mayor, we've effectively doubled our contribution to the Joint Office?
Over the last 4 years since the inception of the Joint Office, the city's contribution from 2017 until now has increased by 25%. And so that included the what was originally part of the Portland Housing Bureau that came to the Joint Office. And then we increased both the city and the county increased their investments by $10 million. And then we've seen investments since that time in the Joint Office.
Yeah, so my recollection is we've effectively doubled our contribution. Is that correct, Mayor?
It depends how you count it. The gross output has been from 17 million, I think, to 34 last year. Is that correct?
Correct.
However, I think if you do it the way Christian is suggesting, if you consider resources that were already ongoing, that were previously allocated through the Housing Bureau, so I think what you're saying is 25% of those contributions are new and 25% previously existed under the Housing Bureau. Is that what you're suggesting?
That's not necessarily, I did the math just on the total contributions, but when I originally started working at the Joint Office, we looked at kind of what came in as existing resources from both the city and the county, from the Portland Housing Bureau and the Department of County Human Services, and then the additional investments that have been made over that time. So I could relook at it with that lens. And
Could you shoot me an email that just,
Absolutely.
I'd like to document that. It's important, and we're going to our budget cycle. So it's important that we hold the line on these critical investments. And the other thing I just want to mention is there are a lot of people who are new to this conversation about how we address homelessness. And all of us get emails from people saying, why aren't you doing anything? You know, what's the city doing? And I think one of the answers is to point people to the Joint Office and say, we have a plan. It's a very ambitious plan. It addresses all the nuances of what we encounter on the streets. It's about prevention, rapid rehousing, shelters, and then supportive housing and other services. It's comprehensive, and we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. As I like to tell people, we have a plan. It's bold. We have to fund it. And I thank you both for your work.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? Is there public testimony on this item, Carla?
Yes, we have two people signed up.
Very good, thank you.
Maggie and Charles Bridge Crane Johnson.
This one's about the contract money, right? So I want to know again, because Joanne Hardesty isn't here, how many low income or aging or disabled people or what's the diversity looking like on, getting a contract from you guys as far as, how they're spreading the money around to different people who are getting contracts with the city?
So Maggie, do you have a chance to go to the Joint Office meetings, the big work group meetings, and see their annual reports and other things? Because they produce a lot of work. It's on the website. It answers all those questions.
Okay.
Today, we're releasing money, but that's a very good question about how we spend the money. And if you're having difficulty getting that from the Joint Office, would you please let my office know?
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Charles Bridge Crane Johnson. And the way this is titled, I think you seized the opportunity to be positive. We could speculate about whether public enthusiasm or public cynicism about local government is growing faster. But when we title these things, amend JOHS intergovernmental agreement with Multnomah County to authorize revised budget allocation, I think when people vote, they're really trying to vote for people who, right in the title, would say increased $1 million, increased $1, reduced $1. And then, of course, when you click through onto the PDF, 748259 is the PDF number, why is there no prior and future year? I mean, it's such an issue that Commissioner Fish raised it. He said, what has been the financial situation for the JOHS since its inception up to now? Are there accounting indications that it's grown 50% or what? But we get just one attachment on page 5 of 7, Exhibit H, and it's really, I don't think any of you can step up and say, this is best practice to snapshot 1 year and not, talk about the challenges of how much of this is as a percentage of total city revenue or expenses. How does it compare to the 217? As Mr. Fish pointed out, there are sources for that, and I'm glad he volunteered his office to help us connect us with that information. But maybe public sentiment and the number of public questions would be reduced if there was a better job at putting a better scope of the data in agenda items like this. And if maybe somewhere in your packets, there's a specific dollar amount that you can talk to about what the net increase is and get that on the record, that would be beautiful. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Carla, please call the roll.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Commissioner Fish, you helped or led the writing of the housing provisions when you first came into office, along with Mayor Adams, in getting the Bureau of Housing and Community Development and the then Portland Development Commission to decide who's doing community development, who's doing housing, establishing the Portland Housing Bureau. And I think that was the beginning of a very necessary systemic way of creating efficiencies and focus. And then you also worked with Mayor Hales and Commissioner Saltzman in forming the joint office, which again made things more sensible, so that it wasn't that the city was taking care of one group of people living outside and the county was taking care of another. And both the Housing Bureau and the joint office have really done amazing work over the 4 years that you've been partnering together. I very much appreciate it. I'm glad to be able to support this contract. But in particular, I appreciate how much you care. We had a senior citizen came into my office the Friday before Thanksgiving around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was one of those bitterly cold days when it was really windy, but it wasn't quite cold enough to open the severe weather shelters. And having tried through 211 and various phone calls to various places to find this individual place, my executive assistant, Mi Sun Kwon, called over to the joint office. And Mark Jolin at like 4:30 in the afternoon on the weekend, just before Thanksgiving, was able to find a place. And not only that we were able to get this individual into a shelter, but then Mark texted back to me, son, over the course of the holiday to let us know that this individual was safe. And we really appreciated that. And so it's not only the really great and focused work that you do, it's the fact that you do it with care and compassion, as does everybody in the Housing Bureau and the Joint Office. So thank you very much. Aye.
Fish?
Well, I'm very pleased to support this. I will be looking to see how we can make even more investments during the budget cycle. And Mayor, you have a lot of responsibilities, very little power under our charter, but you have a lot of responsibilities and a lot of relationships that are important. I think this relationship between the city and the county, between the mayor and the county chair, over how we're addressing homelessness is a paramount relationship. And there have been some bumps along the road. But if you focus less on style and more on substance, we are aligned. We have a plan. We're investing in that plan. We are looking for new resources to expand that plan. It is really good work with a lot of terrific people at the table. And it is very important to our city that the county chair and the mayor continue to collaborate at a very high level in addressing our number one problem, which is street homelessness. So thank you for your work and the presentation. I'm pleased to vote aye.
Wheeler?
So I wanted to answer Charles Bridge Crane's question. Why is the title boring? And the answer is because a lot of the work that we do on the city council is actually just doing the business of the city. And sometimes it is boring. This is the Sixth Amendment revised Exhibit H with the actual awarded fiscal year 1920 budget amounts, which adds $116,917 in carryover federal emergency solution grant funds, $97,464 in carryover federal housing opportunities for people living with HIV and AIDS. That's the HOPWA funds. And from the 1920 fall supplemental budget, we're adding $180,000, which we previously discussed during the fall bump with the recreational cannabis fund. So a lot of the business that we do here, maybe we could be more interesting in the way that we put it on the agenda, but a lot of this really is just doing business. In this case, it is allocating federal grants that have very specific purposes and it is allocating fall bump funds where we've already had the discussion about the use of the funds. So I wish we could make it more interesting and more exciting, but sometimes it just ain't. I also do want to get to the philosophical underpinning of the joint office, and two of my colleagues have mentioned it, and it bears mentioning. This is a highly innovative partnership, and I do want to commend all of those who came together in 2015 and 2016 to establish the partnership. Former Mayor Hales had a huge role to play in this. Commissioner Fish, the then Housing Commissioner, had a huge role to play. Chair Kafori was instrumental in making sure that the joint office got off the ground. Many, many other people who worked in the Housing Bureau and in the county's infrastructure and elsewhere to make sure that the joint office would work. And while there definitely have been some growing pains and bumps along the road and an evolution in thinking as we better understood what worked to address the homeless situation, this is still a nationally regarded model. I mean, I cannot go to a meeting of national mayors where people do not ask about this model and how it's working, how it was created, how it is evolving with time to meet the needs in our community. And in large measure, because of the success of this model, I am very confident that we will end homelessness in our community. It won't be easy and it won't be quick, but I am confident that through the joint office, we have established the right practices around prevention, around shelter, around how to best transition people into housing, and how to keep people successful in housing by creating the support services they need to be successful in that housing, whether it's addiction treatment or mental health services or job training, domestic violence survivor services, whatever. I feel that we have hit on the right formulas and we should be proud of the work that is being done. Obviously, the problem continues. We need to scale the solutions, but I believe we've settled on the right formula, and it's largely because of this unique and innovative and important structure that we've created. So I just want to chime in and say it is important to reflect on the history, and it is important to reflect on the historic contributions that so many people have made, because we all share a passion in ending this crisis in our community. I'm proud to vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. And that leaves Dory, the last person to come up for the pulled item, 111.
Oh, no, we
Did
have
I miss
11
something?
1122.
Oh, I did, on the back page.
And Dory was all ready to get going.
You know what, Dory, come up, because I want you to be able to get to work. We're going to do this quickly, because the person who pulled it left. So why don't you come up? Carla, can you read 1112?
Approve application under the multiple unit limited tax exemption program under the inclusionary housing program for 1500 Southwest Taylor, located at 911 Southwest 15th Avenue.
Colleagues, any questions, any public testimony? Call the roll.
Udaley?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. Thank you, Dory.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Last item on the agenda, 1122, sorry.
Authorize bid solicitation and contracting with the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for construction of the Creston Park Play Area Improvements Project.
Commissioner Nick Fish.
Colleagues, Creston Park near Southeast 45th and Powell is celebrating its centennial next year. And as we know, it's in need of some love. This project will remove a decommissioned wading pool, expand the playground and add accessible play features, add new picnic tables and benches, improve ADA accessible paths. The Bureau estimates the total cost to be approximately $2.3 million. It will be funded by three sources. About half will come from the 2014 Parks Replacement Bond, and the balance from the Park Systems Development Charges and Parks ADA Fund. Parks conducted extensive public engagement, and this design reflects the community's input. As always, I'd like to begin by thanking the voters for overwhelmingly approving the 2014 Parks Replacement Bond, and Commissioner Amanda Fritz for her leadership on the bond campaign. Parks Capital Project Manager Gary Datka is on hand to answer any questions you may have. Gary?
Thank you for having me, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners. I have no formal presentation today, but I am available to answer questions. And Commissioner Fish, if I could just back up on the total project cost. We had a total project allocation of $2.3 million. We're estimating the project construction cost at $1.5 million, which is what we're here for today.
Commissioner Fritz.
So I have to ask, what was the outcome of the fierce battle over the swings?
Oh, we have so many swings.
Oh, you do? Good.
What was the battle? I'm curious.
You know, swings are one of those things that all playgrounds really benefit from. There's great, developmental, sensory things that come out of swinging, and Creston Park in particular had a very big outpouring for swings. So we have a number of bays of swings. We also have a group swing, which is great for inclusionary play, and then, just a great play space overall.
Is it a accessible playground technically?
It is not technically an inclusive playground, which we've been branching out to build more of, but it does meet all accessibility.
The basic,
Yep.
So
ADA
will there be an adapted swing?
There will be, I think actually we have 2 adaptive swings.
Great.
I believe there's also 2, I call them little baby bucket swings, they're for the toddlers.
Mhm.
And then there's 2 standard strap swings, as well again as the group swing.
Swings galore.
Swings
That's
galore.
the perfect outcome. I'm really happy to hear that
Yeah.
because that was generated significant community conversations.
It did, yes.
And yes, Commissioner, the children from Creston Elementary also looked into access from various places and were very much focused on accessibility.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
This is a terrific park. It has a great tree canopy. It's next to an elementary school. It's in an area that's changing quite a lot.
Yes.
And it's long overdue that we upgrade these amenities. So we're very pleased to present this for your consideration.
And we were able to save most of the big trees, is that right?
That is correct. We're actually saving all of the trees within and around the play area. We will maybe take out 1 to 2 trees for some of the ADA improvements, getting down to the pool most readily.
Brilliant, thank you.
The approach from the parking lot to the pool is a difficult one.
Great, and I'll just state the obvious. This underscores the urgency for us to find a sustainable O&M funding process. But this park has long been promised. I'm really proud of the work that my colleagues have done on it. Looks great, thank you. Any further questions, and is there any public testimony on this item?
I believe she left.
All right, it's an emergency ordinance. Please call the roll.
Udaly?
Well, I'm very pleased to hear about the addition of adaptive swings. I think the first time that I directly engaged with City Hall was probably over 10 years ago with Parks in my mission to increase meaningful, accessible options for children with disabilities, specifically mobility challenges. And I really honed in on swings and installing those adapted swings on playgrounds that are deemed accessible, which I've said before and I'll say again, is a really low bar and not inclusive for kids with significant motor impairments. So we have a lot of work to do, but I'm just so happy about that and the larger project, and I vote aye.
Fritz?
I'll echo Commissioner Fish's thanks to the people of Portland, the voters of Portland, for approving the bond measure. And again, thank you to Commissioner Fish for finishing up that campaign. And I'm happy to say, Commissioner Udaly, that all of the projects have included much greater awareness of disability and the need, and I think almost all of them have adaptive swings, so it's really exciting. I think of all of the Parks Bond projects, this one may have been the one that required people in the Parks Bureau to work together, the different departments, both communications, the planners, urban forestry, huge amounts of effort going into getting this park done correctly, so I'm really happy that it's come, especially because this was where we filmed one of the commercial segments for the park, the Fix Our Parks segment. So it's very fitting that it's coming and is getting what we promised when we asked people to continue fixing the parks. Aye.
Fish?
Nice work, Gary. Aye.
Wheeler.
Yeah, this is a happy occasion. Thank you, Commissioner Fish. Thank you, Commissioner Fritz, for your great leadership. Thanks to everybody at the Portland Parks and Recreation Bureau for delivering. Charles Bridgecrane asked a question earlier about whether or not faith in local government was going up or going down. And I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know the way you build trust with the public is you do what you say you are going to do. And this is another case of the Parks Bureau living up to the commitment, to the promises that it made to the public during the last bond issuance, and living up to the confidence and the faith that the voters put in the Portland Parks and Recreation Bureau and the City of Portland to do what they said they were going to do. We're doing it. I vote aye. Ordinance is adopted. We are adjourned.
Good job.